2018.
"9,000 kilometers, 18 days, a life-changing journey." For 400 people, this would be a journey that could transform their understanding, broaden their vision, and encourage them to bring about development through social enterprise. The TATA JAGRITI YATRA was a platform for a diversity of young minds to come together to experience a nationwide wealth of ideas. The Yatris travelled southward from Mumbai, making their first pit stop at Tamil Nadu, then east to Andhra Pradesh and Jharkhand. From there, the train took them to Delhi, Rajasthan, Gujarat and back to Mumbai. Through this journey, the Yatris were introduced to concepts of development and leadership, while consistently being molded to follow a path of integrity and no compromise. In Kanyakumari, the Yatris met 3 success stories who helped them understand the challenges behind setting up a social enterprise.
This is the TATA JAGRITI YATRA, and joining us today are 400 people who have been with us for thousands of kilometers, and these are the people who will be bringing about the impact that you will see in the next couple of decades. And joining all of us on stage are 3 people who are living the dream that they dreamt of a couple of years back. It took one nerve-wracking trip on an ambulance for Shaffi to realize that we needed a dependable ambulance system in the country. He went on to co-found Dial 1298 for ambulance, and today he's actively working on something called Bribe Busters. So let's give a big round of applause and invite Shaffi Matther on stage. Now, while education is important, life skills can be crucial. Now, this is an organization that goes far beyond what textbooks do. Dream a Dream Foundation has been actively working with over 3,000 children, imparting life skills, skills like negotiation, skills like dealing with people over the past couple of years. A warm welcome to Vishal Talreja. Now, what is termed value-added service, or VAS, is actually a lifeline to a whole lot of people. Now, when it comes to the rural areas, which are the underserved markets, there are very few companies that are actually working in a focused, laser-light way to provide information that can really change their lives. And if you're wondering what is value-added service in a rural area, this can be market prices for a farmer so that he can understand what to quote when he goes to a mandi. Very few people do that, but Ekgaon Technologies is one of those who have been pioneering. Let's give a big round of applause and welcome Vijay Pratap Singh Aditya. Much like yourselves, when you were planning to do that big thing a couple of years back, but when the rubber hits the road, what's the kind of friction you experience?
What one has to realize is that everything that can go wrong from what you planned will go wrong. And towards that, there's only one word which will take you through the next stages, and that's persistence.
What are the things that you're talking about when you say go wrong? I mean, you have a business plan, and of course the business plan's first touch with reality changes the entire business plan itself. So when you went about to start Dial 1298 for ambulance, what were the kind of changes that you had to incorporate on the first day when your business plan became active?
So let me give you an example. My friends and I put together one advanced life support ambulance designed on the basis of London Ambulance Service standards, and put it in South Mumbai. And you would expect, it's a life-saving ambulance. People who face medical emergencies will call you, once they are informed. The reality is, it doesn't happen that way. When we started, what we realized on the ground was that there is a well-entrenched network of vested interests which work in the medical fraternity, which actually controls ambulance movements and which ambulance to be called.
One of the things that we found was that when we went upon and shared our ideas with the people who we intended to work with, they themselves couldn't understand what we are trying to tell, that these people with laptops and talking about IT back 10 years back was not something that is required for development in the rural areas. Probably we need funding and we need money and we need everything else, health and education, but definitely we don't need technology. So convincing the beneficiary itself was a major challenge, in which they were not convinced that there is a possibility of using IT or technology for providing them access to services.
What were the kind of skeptics you had to deal with?
One of the first challenges we faced was being young.
Okay.
We were a bunch of 12, 21-year-olds,
Okay.
wanting to do something good.
Okay.
And when we went
How old are you right now?
32.
Okay.
So when we actually went into shelter homes and said, hey, we've got this great after-school program which is actually going to help children build competencies for future employment, they were like, oh, you guys are 21, what do you know about education?
Okay.
And you're going to go back into your corporate careers and forget about these children anyway, so why should we work with you? Okay, so that was our first hurdle. The second hurdle really was understanding life skills. In 2000, when we took the life skills idea to shelter homes and schools and slum communities, everyone looked at it as an extracurricular activity.
Okay.
Something that, a football program after school. Children don't need a football program, they need extra tuitions.
Okay.
Okay. So we really had to battle that out, and we said, okay, give us 6 months with your children. And in 6 months, if these children build better attention and concentration skills in your classroom, you'll see the results of the program. And we were able to show that in 3 months.
There are a lot of young people, there's a lot of ideas out here. I have ideas, so there's 401 ideas out here. But we have that problem, which is not technically a problem of age. So how can this group overcome that hurdle?
And one of the best ways to get your hair grey, like I have done, so you get more serious attention from people. On a serious note, I think what ends up getting that attention is that your commitment that comes from the spirit, if I take the words of Swamiji here, that this inner spirit that shows off that this fellow is actually serious about what he's trying to do. And when you see that through in the people, try to respond back to you.
So does it help to have a lot of people with similar ideas approach the same topic and say that, we might be young in age, but we are all focused and we know pretty much what we're doing? Has that helped you?
Absolutely, absolutely. So when we started the organization in 99, Dream, there were 12 of us. Mm-hmm. Within 3 months, we were 30 people. Okay. Within 6 months, we were 60. In a year, we were 150 people. And these were all volunteers who looked at our idea and said, hey, this is something really exciting I want to get engaged with.
Okay.
And the more people that got engaged, there was more acceptance of the idea. So it definitely helps to share your idea with a lot of passion and persistence and stick to it.
But bringing people together seems to be a challenge in its own way. How do we go about in actually creating a platform where people can come together and say, okay, we've got similar problems, but working together we can actually get about overcoming it?
The way to go about, I think, is just to spoil your shoes, that you have to go there and sit across with the people and try to understand what exactly and how exactly they try to identify their problem.
Shaffi, you've approached this problem a couple of times. You've worked on 3-4 organizations from their inception startup stage. Is it going back to square one every time and trying to help people understand a brand new idea? How do you approach this problem?
I think the most important thing in a startup is getting the right team together.
Okay.
And to get the right team, we have to have an idea, but one has to be passionate about that idea, which you share among your wider network. So for example, in each of the initiative that I have been in,
right,
it has though I have been the lead person, everything has come out because of a team around me. And for example, in 1298 ambulance, the team has actually imbibed it, lived it, and is taking it forward beyond me after I stepped out of it.
How do you bring about a volunteer system where no money is involved, yet have an effective organization?
Let me start off by saying it's actually 1,500 volunteers today.
Okay.
What worked for us right in the beginning was this core philosophy that every individual has a need to give back to society. Because people saw value in what they were bringing and they got appreciated for it and they saw results. We actually looked at the entire volunteer engagement as a life cycle.
Okay.
A volunteer comes in not knowing what they want to do,
Okay.
and we take them through stages within about 2 to 3 years where they actually become a change maker,
Okay.
where they believe that they don't need a dream to bring about change in society. They can do it themselves.
Shaffi, now Bribe Busters seems to have an immense potential and a lot of value. But how is this value going to translate into more people coming towards you and joining your organization?
What we are trying to do is try to take the anti-corruption initiative and make it into a social enterprise where a bunch of good intentioned people can actually come together, fight individual demand for bribes, and actually be paid for fighting that. And what we have realized in our pilot stages, it's when they're forced to, when their back is to the wall, that they are forced to pay a bribe. If you have a problem of somebody demanding a bribe of you, call bribebusters.com.
Now, when you start an organization, there is an immense amount of enthusiasm and everybody's just gearing up to go forward. But over a period of time, you will have people losing steam and, you will have the problem of attrition. Now, how have you overcome this problem?
Well, it's a difficult process, but it has to be done. And I think losing steam is a thing which does happen, and which has happened with us. We have to start over almost 2 times in the last 8 years from zero. Zero means I'm the only one left during that phase of time. So when we reach those phases, I think we have to look into some of the systems within the organization as well as within yourself as an individual, that where is the problem? Is it with you or with the organization or with the mandate with which you are working?
I think sharing both the gain that you built and the glory is very important to sustain the team beyond the commitment stage.
Can you tell me a little more about the glory?
It is important that you share not only the wealth that you built or the gains, financial gains, but you also should have a mental frame where you can actually share the glory with the team around you.
But then again, fame and glory is not something that comes with your field of work.
I have a different take on what we have said. We did do a lot of mistakes. Being young, I think we were very immature in dealing with the glory that came. Most of us as founders, being young, when everyone starts recognizing you, you get newspaper articles, you have CNBC covering you, it gets to your head, and it did get to our head. And there was a point in 2004 when the entire founding team broke down. And that was the time we actually sat back and we reflected on what we were doing wrong, and whether was it us or was it the work that we are doing that was important. And I remember the words of one of my mentors then, and that was a time when we actually almost closed down the organization because we said we couldn't stand each other.
Okay.
And we had a mentor telling us that 99% of startup organizations fail at this very point. And the only way you can build success, because this is the lowest point you can get to, is actually just sticking it out. And we stuck it out.
Is money a solution to most startup problems, Shaffi?
Most often not.
Okay.
Actually, not having money is possibly the best situation that you can find yourself in a startup, because it actually helps you improvise and find ways of getting things done in the least cost and most efficient way.
I second what Shaffi is saying, that it's better not to have money in the startup phase, initially at least, so that you, it needs conviction of your idea also to get self-convicted about it, and maybe the passion is there, maybe the spirit is there, but getting that conviction from the people who are adopting your idea is something which matters a lot. It gives a lot of other boost other than money, which helps you to grow, and that's where initial phases of Ekgaon, we found ourselves in terribly bad conditions financially, and during those phases there were times where you kind of hit the roadblock, but with the conviction that we had in our idea or our work was so strong that it kept us going.
How did you get past this issue?
Yeah, I agree with both of them completely. In the initial years, all of us had day jobs, corporate jobs. So our salaries used to go into Dream a Dream, and we actually never needed money. The first 2 years, we ran the entire organization in about 93,000 rupees.
For the entire year?
For 2
and
years.
how many? 2 years, 93,000.
years, that's
And how
it.
many of you were working?
None of us working full time, but there were about almost nearly 100 of us as volunteers.
Excellent.
And it was really about, as Vijay said, getting innovative there, because we knew we didn't have the money to spend. We ran a campaign with the hospitality industry.
Okay.
We tied up with restaurants across Bangalore, and we set up something called a dream table, which was also excellent branding for us.
Okay.
Where we set up the table with children's artwork, a table for 4, and anyone who dined at the dream table, the proceeds of that came to Dream a Dream.
Okay.
And why the restaurants bought that? Because we told them that this is your brand differentiation strategy. We will promote this among 100 volunteers and their corporates and their corporate networks, and you're going to get more business, and we're going to get the money. And then that worked phenomenally well.
How would you go about marketing in a space where technology really isn't pervasive? And we're talking about Ekgaon, when you're looking at rural areas, how do you go about that?
Well, that's a very difficult area where making people aware of our services and making them understand what is the meaning of those services sometimes is very difficult. So we through our time tested over 8 years, what we have done is that we have tried to partner with right organizations who give us that platform to access the people who will be attentive for more than 20 minutes and listen out to what we have to say, and probably do the trials themselves, and then adoption happens. I think our more success is because of our partners who bought our ideas and then passed on that information to people.
Shaffi, 4 different organizations till now. How do you go about networking and accessing the right people?
When there's a problem that you need to solve, you connect through your existing network,
right?
And if you communicate with passion what you want to, the network's actually open to you.
What's important is to stay in touch, and stay in touch with the same amount of passion that you have for the cause. Not just for the sake of getting something out of them, but really believing in your idea and believing that they have something to add value to your idea. Okay, so it's not just about every visiting card counting, but also the person behind the visiting card really counting, and you being genuine about reaching out to them.
Approaching a venture capitalist in the initial stages of the idea, what have been your experiences and what would you not recommend to do?
I think one of the most important thing that people here need to look out for is that when you are asked to question your own intent for providing the service, I think that's where the basic problem occurs. That why don't you look at changing your basic premise? Why don't you work with this? At least you'll get some revenue from that. So this is where I think you need to be as an entrepreneurs to steadfast on your idea, like you have stood on the ground on that idea for 4 or 5 years like we have. So standing on that is also very important, and not changing it because somebody is asking to change you.
The biggest trigger or motivator is when I hear a more credible guy say no to me. It acts as a catalyst to prove that individual wrong.
What's interesting to see is that how a lot of venture capitalists are actually pushing us to think out of the box again. So we're actually developing a very strong hybrid model where we're looking at the donor market as a market to support some of our services. And then how can we use the experience, the skill and the knowledge we have developed in the last 11 years into actually creating revenue for the growth.
Excellent. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And now let's go over to the people who are really what the Yatra is all about. Lots of hands up there.
Sir, I'm a 3rd year engineering student. Now my question is, should I start something just after college, or should I have an MBA degree and focus on its preparation and have a work experience and then start something?
You have to start when you have convinced yourself that you are ready to start. Nobody else can take that decision for you.
I can quickly add that the degrees you are listing may not have much to do with the idea that you are working on. I never used any of my degrees for the work that I'm doing.
When you start a business, how much you should, dependent on government, or you just neglect the government and keep moving on?
In any private enterprise, it is best to stay as far away from the government as possible. But reality demands that you need permissions, you need approvals, and that is where it is very, very important that you stay on course in terms of not deviating from the ethical principles which are important.
So far we have never had to deal with the government.
Okay.
But as we are understanding education better, we realize that the government has to be a key partner. The government has the largest funding. The government has the largest access to children, access to the schooling system, and the ability to change policy.
Okay.
Okay, so we're initiating conversations with the government now.
Fabulous session. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And it was great meeting all of you as well. We'll meet again in Hyderabad, where we're going to talk about venture capital and how to raise that for your next firm.